My dear brothers and sisters, my beloved people of India, today, I have not come here to give you a lecture. Today, I have not come here to read from a book. Today, I have not come here to entertain your ears. No, today I have come here to awaken your mind, to shake your memory, to ignite your self-respect, to ask one powerful question: who told India who India is? Who wrote our image? Who defined our civilization? Who described our people? Who gave themselves the right to explain us to us? And my friends, that is where the story of power begins. Let me ask you something. Was India conquered only by the sword? No. Was India ruled only by the gun? No. Was India dominated only by armies? No. Then how? Through ideas, through language, through education, through books, through stories. And the biggest story of all was this: that India was the Orient. Now think carefully. What is this Orient? Who created it? Why did they create it? And why should every Indian understand it today? Because, my brothers and sisters, the greatest empires do not first conquer land. They first conquer meaning. Yes, before they rule your country, they rewrite your identity. Before they occupy your soil, they occupy your imagination. Before they chain your hands, they weaken your mind. And that is exactly what Europe did to India. Europe divided the world into two parts. One side was the West. And what did they say about the West? Modern, rational, scientific, civilized, superior. And on the other side, they placed us. They placed India. And they called us the East, the Orient. And what did they say about the Orient? Mysterious, emotional, irrational, chaotic, backward. Now I ask you, was this truth? Or was this a trick? It was a trick. A clever trick. A dangerous trick. A colonial trick. Because once they described us as weak, they could rule us. Once they described us as incapable, they could control us. Once they described us as backward, they could call themselves our saviors. This is how empire works. First, they insult your civilization. Then, they occupy your land. Then, they call it civilizing you. What a game. What a performance. What hypocrisy. They came as traders and became rulers. They came as outsiders and became judges. They came as exploiters and became teachers. And then they had the audacity to say, "We are here to improve you." Improve whom? Improve India, the land of philosophy, the land of mathematics, the land of language, literature, astronomy, metaphysics, poetry, logic, grammar, ethics, and civilizational depth. And they wanted to teach us civilization. This was not help. This was domination dressed as wisdom. And this is why Edward Said matters. Edward Said showed the world something revolutionary. He said, the East was not simply discovered. The East was invented. Invented. Remember this word. Invented. They did not just look at India. They constructed India. They packaged India. They narrated India. They created an image of India that suited their empire. An India that was ancient but not advanced, spiritual but not intelligent, rich in culture but poor in governance, colorful but not capable, Fascinating but not equal. Do you see it? They did not want India to stand beside them. They wanted India to stand beneath them. That was the project. That was the politics. That was the poison. My dear peoples, listen to me very carefully. The deepest slavery is not physical slavery. The deepest slavery is mental slavery. When someone takes your land, you can fight back. When someone steals your wealth, you can recover. But when someone enters your mind, when someone teaches you to doubt yourself, when someone convinces you that your own civilization is inferior, then the battle becomes much harder. Because then, the ruled begin to think like the rulers. And that is how empires survive. Not just through power, but through psychology. Not just through violence, but through vocabulary. Not just through armies, but through education. What did they do in education? Did they just open schools? No, they opened a system of hierarchy. A system where their knowledge became universal. Our knowledge became local. Their philosophy became theory. Our wisdom became tradition. Their science became reason. Our thought became beliefs. And slowly, very slowly, a dangerous lie entered the Indian mind. What comes from Europe is superior. What comes from us is secondary. And my friends, that lie must be broken. That lie must be challenged. That lie must be defeated. And then came language, one of the most powerful weapons of empire. They made language into status, language into power, language into prestige. And what happened? English became not just a language. It became a ladder, a gate, a badge, a passport, a filter of class and legitimacy. And our own languages, the languages of our mothers, the languages of our poetry, the languages of our villages, the languages of our saints, rebels, lovers, philosophers, storytellers. Those languages were made to feel smaller. So I ask you today, can wisdom not speak in Hindi? Can philosophy not breathe in Gujarati? Can intelligence not shine in Tamil? Can truth not sing in Bangla, Marathi, Punjabi, Urdu, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, Odia, Sanskrit? Why not? Of course it can. The problem was never our language. The problem was power. Say it with me. The problem was power. Edward Said teaches us one unforgettable lesson. Knowledge is not always innocent. When power writes about you, power also shapes you. They wrote our history. They translated our texts. They classified our castes. They interpreted our religions. They counted our communities. They mapped our territories. They described our habits. And then they said, "We know India." But let us ask the real question. Which India did they know? The living India. The breathing India. The struggling India. The speaking India. Or the India they needed for empire. That is the truth of Orientalism. They did not merely study us. They reduced us. They framed us. They managed us. They governed us through knowledge. And then came the biggest lie of all. The lie that every empire tells. The lie that every colonizer repeats. The lie that sounds noble but hides violence. And that lie is this: we came to civilize you. What arrogance! What audacity! What deception! They looted our wealth and called it progress. Today we stand at a crossroads of history and identity. To understand where we are going, we must look at the greedy ship that arrived on our shores centuries ago. As Dr. Jaswant Rathod poignantly asks in his work, Is this the Britain that launched a greedy ship and looted India of her riches? When we talk about colonialism, we often think of it as a simple story of soldiers and kings, but it was much more calculated. It was a system. Dr. Rathod reminds us that the colonizers did not see India as a cradle of civilization, they saw us as a cash cow. Imagine a system designed to suck the lifeblood out of our soil. Our farmers were caught in a revenue trap. Even when the rains failed and the earth cracked, the British demanded their taxes. They took our raw materials for pennies, sent them to their factories, and sold the finished cloth back to us at high prices. This wasn't trade, it was a drain of wealth. Before the greedy ship arrived, India was the world's textile hub. Our weavers were artists whose cloth was desired from Rome to Java, but the colonizers systematically wrested away this dominant grip. They didn't just compete with us, they destroyed our handlooms to build their power. They turned a world leader into a struggling colony. Perhaps the most remarkable concept Dr. Rathod highlights is not the theft of the Kohinoor, but the theft of our self-respect. They used the mask of the white man's burden. They told the world, and they told us, that India was dirty, barbaric, and uncivilized. They used our social ills to justify their greed. This, as Dr. Rathod says, was a psychological disease. They wanted us to believe we were incapable of ruling ourselves so that they could keep the keys to our treasury. They disrupted our systems and called it reform. They restructured our society and called it order. They weakened our confidence and called it enlightenment. No, my friends, let us say it clearly. They did not civilize India. They colonized India. And before colonizing India physically, they colonized India intellectually. And do not think this is over. Do not think this belongs only to the past. Do not think colonialism is gone simply because the flag changed. No, sometimes empire leaves the soil, but stays in the syllabus. Sometimes empire leaves the government, but stays in the mindset. Sometimes empire leaves the palace, but stays in the language of serious thought. And even today, that old voice returns whenever someone says, "Real theory only comes from the West. Indian languages are not enough for intellectual work. Local knowledge is emotional, Western knowledge is analytical. India becomes valid only when Europe approves it." That is not modernity. That is recycled colonialism. So what must India do now? Should we reject the world? No. Should we reject modern science? No. Should we reject dialogue with global knowledge? No. India does not need isolation. India intellectual intellectual confidence. India must engage the world, but not kneel before it. India must learn, but not surrender itself. India must modernize, but not erase its memory. India must rise, not as a copy, but as a civilization speaking in its own voice. So today I ask every Indian, who are you when you stop seeing yourself through colonial eyes? Who are you when you stop apologizing for your civilization? Who are you when you reclaim your own language, your own history, your own mind? That is the real freedom. That is the real awakening. That is the real revolution. Because political freedom alone is not enough. A nation is not fully free until it can think freely about itself, until it can define itself, until it can speak in its own voice, until it can stand before the world and say, "We are not your invention. We are not your fantasy. We are not your Orient. We are India, a civilization, a consciousness, a history, a force, a future, and that future must not be written for us. It must be written by us. So rise, India. Rise in confidence. Rise in knowledge. Rise in language. Rise in dignity. Rise in memory. Rise in self-respect. And let the world hear us. India will not be described from above anymore. India will speak for itself. India will define itself. India will rise on its own terms. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.